It is streaming time. Streaming time. Go into my channel. Oh, I'm streaming. Okay. Gonna kill that so I don't create a loop. So, I decided to stream tonight basically because I don't want to bother uploading a video, I suppose. But I don't know how useful this session will be to anyone else. But it's going to be an interesting challenge. The interesting challenge is this. I got this shot been working on in OpenTunes, and hey, thanks, Seal. I don't know how you say that, but how you doing, man? Wait, I say man. It's just me and you, dude. Okay, I'm gonna assume that a guy would talk that way, so you're a guy. Anyway, so what am I doing? I got this shot in OpenTunes, and basically, here's what's supposed to happen. Okay, so a little context. Probably should jump back here. File, save. Let's go back to the video edit. Boom. Okay, so today's been a reasonably productive day in that I've gotten quite a few shots knocked out. And so this is what we kind of have going on. Akari's being accosted by the bad guys. And so that brings us to this shot. And what happens is Zen crawls up behind these guys, clunks their heads together, and as you can see, this shot is totally butchered. I had to chop it all up to just get the motion blocked in better, and then I figured I can clean it up. But as I'm going through it, I'm realizing that maybe this would be fair game for jumping over to Blender 2.8 and trying a few different things. So in Blender, the first thing I did that is different than I've done before is to go ahead and create each of the characters as separate independent grease pencil objects. Obviously in 2.79 you couldn't have multiple grease pencil objects. So the immediate lesson that I learned was I created the grease pencil object and duplicated it, and then I gave each of them names. By default, what Blender does is creates a new grease pencil data block and links that to the object. So the object and the grease pencil data block, I'm using old school Blender terminology here. I don't even know what the new terminology is, but you know, the idea is that the object is pointing to or linked to the data block. So theoretically, you could have multiple objects that are all pointing to the same grease pencil data, and that could become useful because you may want to clone objects, or I don't know. Ostensibly, maybe you could even use them in a particle system. I'm not sure, some kind of crowd thing or something. But yeah, I would assume that's possible. Haven't gotten that deep yet. But anyway, so this is the situation. I've got each of the 4 characters, and now we're going to go ahead and just kind of figure it out bit by bit what the animation situation is going to be. Okay, so the first thing I did was I grabbed Zen and did some basic object animation. I actually moved him on the y-axis because he kind of comes up behind these guys. Now he might be moving in a little faster than he needs to. Okay, but so when you see it here, you know, I kind of give him a little bit of a walking kind of thing going on, but So basically, from the standpoint of the structure of the scene, I think we're in pretty good shape. You know, on the y-axis, Zen is behind the rest of them. And so now the question becomes, what are we going to do? The important action, obviously, is him grabbing their heads and smashing them together. So why don't we go ahead and get the basic keys in there. So Zen comes up and probably, let's just feel this. Zoom, boom. Yeah, about there. Now I don't want to completely redraw him, so therefore what I'm gonna do is I'll just go into sculpt mode and do something so it creates a key. Alright, so now let's go ahead and get his hand kind of blocked in here, just the shape of it. And as long as we're here and we can, why not just grab this? Let's duplicate this over here. We'll hit, I'm going to hit SX -1. Okay, now that's interesting. Well, I guess that worked. SX -1. So flip it on the x-axis. You know what? That's wrong. You know what? I know what's going on here. I know what's going on here. If you go in here, yes, individual origins. It's actually flipping. Okay, so there's something we learned today. Huh, cool. There's a lot to learn. So take your time. Be patient with yourself. Okay, so I don't want to flip it on individual origins, because what it just did was it took every individual stroke and flipped it around its own center. I want to take the whole cluster of strokes. So I believe that would be median point. So let's go scale, or S, on the x-axis, -1. Okay, that's kind of weird too. Let's try this again. Median point, active element, 3D cursor, individual origins. I think median point is what I want. Oh, I see what the problem is. Okay. This is my fault, because I'm still getting used to the fact Blender 2.79, you used to hit A to select all, and then you'd hit A again to unselect. Whereas with Blender 2.8, you either hit Alt A to deselect, or you hit A twice. So hit A twice, Control, select this. The other one is not selected. I should be able to go size on the X -1, and that finally worked. Okay, so now we can take this and put it like right about there, and I would say let's just do this on, I don't know, let's just do it on like 4s and see how it goes. So now I'm going to hit the G key. Okay, hold on. I don't want proportional editing on at this point. Okay, so I'm going to put that there to grab his head. Alright, double A to deselect, Control, select, and boom. Okay, so now, cool. So now what I want to do is, let's okay, so here's where doing it the Blender way, especially when you have characters that are all overlapping and stuff, this is where it could get a little bit clunky. Here's why. And this is where doing everything sort of the old school way, where you just look at it as a flat drawing, probably would work better in this case, because here's the problem I'm going to run into. See, his hands are not in fact in front of these guys. Now, of course, I could move them on the y-axis and then scale them down and put them in front of these guys, and that's probably what I should do. because what's going to happen is when I ink these guys and fill in all the colors and everything, they're actually going to be in front of his hands. So, an interesting conundrum. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just bloody well try to do the right thing here, which is going to be to grab his hands and I can't even believe I'm doing this. This is definitely a new way to work. Okay, so we're going to G for go on the y-axis, and I'm going to go ahead and move his hands in front of him. Now, in a way, this is kind of stupid because obviously I don't need to do this until it's inked, right? But again, I'm sort of trying to get used to Blender's way of doing things. So that's fine. That causes hands to scale a little bit. Thanks for the compliment there, sir. Appreciate that. Okay, so now this can go roughly about there. Yeah, and it's even more complicated because actually his fingers would be in front, but the palms of his hands would be behind. So this could, so if you're going to go ahead and not work on a flat drawing and really think of it as a 3D space, you know, be prepared because it does get complicated. So now what I got to do is go to object mode, and I want to grab this guy, and so now I've got another question I need to answer. Do I want to move these guys close together? In other words, do I want to animate the objects, or do I want to do everything with grease pencil strokes? Just to make my life miserable, I'm going to animate the objects. Alright, so I'm going to hit the G key, which created a key, and then just so I'm not going crazy later, I'm just going to add another key there. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing with this guy. I'm just going to go okay, so now here's another complication by having everything in separate objects, is that I cannot see, well, okay, maybe I can if I stretch it up like this, but yeah. So I'm seeing Ninja 2, Ninja 1, and so this is kind of interesting to me. So I am not seeing the two together, which is kind of complicated because that means that I have to remember what frame I set the key on. Now that's the way you have to do it. Jump over this guy, go to the correct frame, probably, you know, with the hotkeys, then grab this guy and give him some kind of something so that it creates a key. Okay, now these guys both have keys. Okay, so now what I want to do is say, how long would this take? Boom. It would be about that long. Okay. So now the problem is that I'm gonna rotate this guy a little bit and move him over to here. Okay. So now I'm on the correct frame, so I might as well grab this guy, rotate him a little bit, and move him over here. Okay. So now we've clunked our guys together, which means we need to animate Zen's hands. So again, here's another complication of just deciding, are we going to animate objects? Are we going to think in terms of rigging here? Or are we going to think in terms of drawing? Because this is now tweened on ones, so which I'm probably going to want to make that like twos or maybe even like constant interpolation. But the point is, now I got to go back to Zen, and I better go into edit mode so I can see what the heck I'm doing. But so now the question becomes, you know, his hands were here, and then these guys start moving, so now you got to make a decision. What are we going to do with his hands? Okay, because if you wanted to make his hands just move like a translation animation, it's crazy how much these do fight against each other, but then you would actually want his hands to be in a separate object than his body so that you can actually animate the object separately. So you can see how things do get complicated quickly. As a general rule, it's probably best to deal with things as just a flat drawing. However, what I'm going to do in my case, this is kind of like a programming problem actually. What I'm thinking is This frame is fine. Okay, so let's go to the object. So I think that actually when I get here, the hands should actually be moved into these other guys' grease pencil layers. So all of which goes to show that it isn't always wise to think of your grease pencil objects as characters. Like each one's going to be a separate character or something. It's like here I am, it's the first time I've actually used individual grease pencil objects. And the very first thing I try puts me in a situation where I really can't have these guys as separate characters. Yes, you could do it, but you'd have to, like I said earlier, you'd have to be constantly animating stuff on the depth axis in order to make sure things are in front of each other properly. But my point was that I can't just draw his hands to a new position because the grease pencil isn't going to do that interpolation that I'm seeing with these guys' heads, right? So, anyway, as I'm playing this, one thing that's pitifully obvious, like really obvious, is that this doesn't happen quickly enough. That's not even quick enough. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to put it on 4s, and yeah, that should be on 4s. So I'm going to go to that frame, grab this guy, and drag this back. Okay, so the whole thing has to happen quicker. Alright, I'm going to select nothing. Boom. Okay, so now we're back to the original question, which is what are we doing with the guy's hands? Alright, so we're here, and then from here, what seems like makes sense is to go into edit mode and take these strokes and move them to okay, now this is interesting. Oh, wait a second. I just bumped into a whole new problem. Interesting. Okay, it never occurred to me that I'd bump into this one. So now what I'm thinking is I just want to move the hand into Ninja 2's grease pencil object. But when you hit the M key to move, you can only move to another layer inside that one. Hey, AMR. You can only move it to another layer in that grease pencil object, I think. Well, let's just do this. Let's hit Control X. Nope, that just dissolves. So that means what I want to do, it appears I can't do. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wiggle this around so that I get another key. Okay, on this frame, I just want to get rid of those strokes. Yeah, this is definitely a really good example of probably the stuff you're going to bump into like all the time. So what you want to do here is you go, well, I already moved his hands, I believe. Was it this frame? No, it was the next one. So, okay, so what I really need to do now is jump to this character and go into edit mode so that on this frame, actually, I'm sorry, not edit mode, I want to draw. On this frame, okay, really? Grease pencil. See, I'm not looking at the right guy here. Wow, this is definitely challenging. So that's got to go there. And now what I want to do is put, sorry, it happened again. I think the takeaway tonight is going to be, yeah, it's right here. Here's the problem. I've got to duplicate this key so that when I start drawing, all the strokes for the character that I already drew are still there. Okay, now, if I go ahead and put the hand like this, the way it is in the original version here in OpenTunes, like that, that's basically the shot I'm trying to create here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put his hand there. Now here's the good news. The good news is because that's drawn into that character, it's going to inherit the animation. So that's good. So now what I want to do is I got to get back out of drawing mode and back into drawing mode. Hold on, did I do this correctly? Yes. Back to drawing mode. Now the same thing here. Okay, I put his hands like that. Okay, and again, it'll inherit the animation, so that looks pretty good. And then what I probably would want to do is go back into object mode, and when we get to here, we probably want to see his arms sort of flaring out. So, I don't even know if I finished my sentence, but yeah, Oxer, I haven't been live streaming. I've just been posting videos. Okay. So now, another complication that I can definitely see is going to come back to bite me over and over again if I'm not careful is you better make sure that you have the correct character showing in the dope sheet. Otherwise, you're going to not see the keyframes. You're going to go, where are my keyframes? Well, because you're looking at the wrong character or the wrong grease pencil object. So as you guys can see, there's a lot of housekeeping involved compared to just doing everything as it's like anime, right? It's just drawings, flat drawings. This whole idea of putting everything in separate grease pencil objects is probably, I am 20 minutes into it and going, God, I've created 10 times as much work for myself just managing that. So my thinking at this point would be, you probably want to only create new grease pencil objects when there's a really good reason to. And generally speaking, if the characters are all sort of intertwined and overlapping each other and all that stuff, you don't want to be putting them in different objects because you're just creating more work is really all you're doing. Okay, so anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to where his hands come together, and what I'm going to do is duplicate this key, and then probably I should put in a tween there as well. Okay, so now if we go in here, that's on 2s, that's on 3, that's probably okay. Alright, so what would we do here? Well, I'm going to say we're going to see his forearm probably in that shot, and then what I'm kind of feeling here is the idea of something like that. It's not quite right. His arms are going to be out. I have to say that there's two ways to make a keyframe. Okay, if you're doing the grease pencil, if you start drawing, it'll just automatically create a keyframe for you. So if I go to this frame right here and I start drawing, this is kind of what I was talking about a second ago. Watch what happens when I start drawing. Zen disappeared. Well, why did he disappear? Because Blender thinks I want to create a new drawing. If I don't want to create a new drawing, but I just want to modify the one I already had, then I should duplicate the other one by hitting Control D and then start drawing. And then what I've added just gets added to it, like so. So that's how you create a keyframe. So now going back to this frame, I want to get his indication of his arm in there. Okay. So now let's hit the rewind button, see what we have. Okay, yeah, not bad, not bad. Boom. Okay. The only thing I'm kind of objecting to here is I feel like maybe I want to see his shoulders. This is kind of like Jack Kirby style here, isn't it? Okay, that's not horrible. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to actually have these guys bounce off. So I'm just going to do this on 2s. And now here's where maybe we'll get a little bit of leverage doing things the Blender way. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go like this and just select this. I'm going to put the cursor there, make sure that I'm revolving around the 3D cursor. I did that by hitting the period key. And now I can take this and just pull this out a little bit, right? Same thing over here. But significantly, none of which is made any easier by having this character in a separate grease pencil object. So all in all, I'm actually kind of regretting that approach, but that's okay. Today, the whole point today is learning as we go. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and pull these guys back a little. Whoops. Hit the G key, and I'm hitting shift so that it really slows the movement down. Okay. G key, boom. Okay. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to hit A twice, and boom. Okay, that's cool. So these guys, their heads, they need to bounce off of each other, in other words. Boom. Boom. Okay, so now, as I'm looking at this, I'm saying, well, what else can we do to make this even cooler? Well, one thing we can do is, let's grab Zen, and let's go into edit mode. And then what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take this, I'm just going to put the cursor there so it's sort of where his neck would be. Hello? Okay, let's see. Boom, boom. Okay, so now this kind of gets again into the tug of war between object animation and oh, okay, so I cannot answer that. Oxer, Amar, maybe you can answer this. There's an option in the grease pencil, and I know how to do it in Blender 2.79, but 2.8, I don't even know where the option is. But the option is to do continuous drawing versus not. So if you don't have that option set, even though you're on a new keyframe, it'll keep adding to the drawing as opposed to creating a new drawing. I don't know where that option is, and I don't want to go searching for it right now. Unfortunately, it's kind of out of my window for what I'm working on right now. But like I said, Amar, if you know what the... Yeah, that looks pretty good. If you know what that option is, let Seal know. Okay. So now we've got some stupid stuff. This is... I want to say that... I kind of started to say this earlier, and again, I don't know if I finished my sentence, but when I'm learning the software, making a lot of mistakes, at the same time that I'm trying to be creative, it doesn't usually go very well. So I don't feel like I'm necessarily doing my best work, since I'm really, my brain's going a million miles a minute thinking about how to work with the tools here. So what I'm seeing that's bugging me is his head. The positioning of his head looks stupid to me. And that move right there is unnecessary. So that's where his hands appear. So here's how I'm going to solve that. And it might be kind of a goofy way to solve it, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to grab his head and delete the strokes. And then I'm going to go to the next frame, grab his head, Control C, go back to this frame and hit Control V. So there I've just basically put the strokes so that they're in the same position. Okay, so that looks better. Cool. So I'm going to keep, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to keep seeing Zen through. I'm just going to follow this shot through with just him. Because, man, in the old version, it was definitely choppy, but yeah, he was up above. You couldn't actually see the guy. And frankly, maybe this should be framed that way as well. Is it the option that looks like a snowflake while in draw mode? Let's find out, man. We're in draw mode. Snowflake. When creating new frames, the strokes from the previous frame are included as the basis for the new one. Dude, I'm turning that on myself. 9 times out of 10, that's what I want. So, there you go, Seal. Amar, thank you, sir. I appreciate you stepping up there and helping out. So I say again that what I'm doing here would definitely be a lot easier if these guys were actually all in the same grease pencil object. So anyway, lesson learned. Okay, so now I said I wanted to see Zen through, so let's do it this way. Let's go boom, boom, jump right about there. And I'm going to do this all in edit mode. Boom, 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 boom. And let's move that down. Remember, if it's all sloppy and messy, it doesn't matter because this is just the pencil test that the final ink is going to be done. Going to be based on. And the good thing is, remember, if I want to, and I probably will, I can go ahead and combine. You know, if I'm regretting this choice to put each character in its own grease pencil object, that's okay. Because when it comes time to do ink and paint, if I want to put it all in one layer or one object, at that point, I can do it, you know, because this is just my guide. Okay, so now, the only thing I want to add here is I probably want him to be looking more down-ish. So what I'm going to do is just grab his eye and doom 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 doom. Cool. Frankly, I think that's it for Zen. Let's go back into object mode and let's grab, I want to mess with Akari last. So let's do Ninja 1, okay? So now Ninja 1's the guy that basically looks like Spider-Man. Okay, so here we're going to close up. Well, wait a minute. Okay, so this is where it gets a little funky to me. I better save early, save often. I'm in edit mode, and I wish that when I had a given character selected that they would be showing up on the dope sheet. Well, that's okay. Yeah, and this is even more confusing because where the heck are my characters now? Maybe I don't have an object animation key on the character yet. I thought I had one for all of them, but maybe not. Well, there's one way to find out. In object mode, all I need to do is... Yeah, of course I do, because these guys got their heads animated, right? And that was not done with grease pencil strokes. It was done with object animation. So in the dope sheet, if anybody sees what the heck I'm doing wrong, let me know. Because my dope sheet seems to have gotten dopey. I'm a little confused here, folks. Dope sheet. It's either, I mean, it's always either dope sheet or grease pencil, you know. So, okay. So for some mysterious reason, here with Blender 2.8, wait a minute, look at that. Okay, that's a bug. That's a bug. When I drag it down, all of a sudden the dope sheet summary. Okay, that's interesting. And then I grab a character, grab a different character, and the dope sheet summary. Okay, that makes sense. For it to disappear when Akari is selected makes sense because I never set any object keys for that grease pencil object. So maybe just to be, not stupid, I should go like this. Hello? I'm just going to move her a little bit. Okay, so she has a key. So now everybody's got a key? Yes, everybody's got at least one. And just to be consistent, I'll move that to frame 0 instead of frame 1. Okay. So now we are going to deal with this ninja, and now I can see my keys. Great. Step 1. We got to draw. Because this guy, like I said, he sort of looks like Spider-Man. He's got a completely black costume, and all you really see are his eyes. Okay. So now, because that's baked into the drawing, and all of his animation is object animation at this point, that means that when I hit go, his eyes do disappear. Okay, that's exactly what I didn't expect to have happen. So therefore, I need to put on my thinking cap. I know what's going on. That's on frame 0. Yep, there's the problem. Oh boy. And see, this really, I find this a little irritating. Even though Ninja 1 is selected, the dope sheet summary still defaults back to Akari. So, okay. Well, this is the problem I described. The problem is that he already had a key on frame 1, and I added the eyes on frame 0. So I'll delete that keyframe, and now, as you can see, everything's kind of sort of back to normal. Now, this, I'm in grease pencil mode, so my theory here is that this is a duplicate keyframe. So if I delete it, okay, cool. I think I'm going to leave that guy alone and come back to this guy. Okay, and again, I'm not enjoying all the housekeeping you got to do here to stay on track. But it is what it is. So, okay, so I'm going to have the same problem again because right now I'm on frame 0. I need to be on frame 1 because that's where the key is. Otherwise, it's going to create a separate key on frame 0, and then everything I drew is going to disappear when it hits frame 1. Okay, so now this guy had a headband. So what's the lesson? The lesson is most of the things I've bumped into here in the last 20 minutes that are clunky, pretty much the direct result of using multiple grease pencil objects where each character has his own grease pencil object. It actually just made the work more complicated because you have to keep switching from this one to that one. You got to keep dragging the dope sheet around. So my advice to myself and to anyone who cares to take my advice is generally do not think of grease pencil objects as being characters. You can do that, but in a scene like this where everybody's clustered together, it really just causes more harm than good. If you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, well, you'll have to go do some research, I guess. Alright. So, it seems to me there's something wrong with this guy, but I can't remember what it is. Maybe not. Yeah, he just had the... okay, so I'm just going to use the... This was the long-haired guy. I'm seeing as I'm drawing, by the way, I'm seeing some flickering over here. I'm not quite sure what that is. And yeah. Okay, so that's the basic character. The only other caveat, well, I don't know. It looks like in the old version we did see his eyeball. So anyway, there he is. So now we have the same situation as before because the animation is all baked into the... Okay, the animation's... I see what's going on. Okay, this is something that... It's been a little hit and miss with Blender, not just in 2.8 either, but I've noticed... what happens is you create a keyframe in one layer and it adds keyframes to the other layers or something of that nature. Okay, anyway, enough complaining. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add secondary animation on this guy right now, just like this. First of all, oh, I see what the deal is. I am an idiot. I forgot about the hands. So that's okay. Let's do it this way. So his hands are up there, and there his hands disappear. So that's where the hands need to hit this guy's head. So now I have the snowflake selected, so that means that I should be able to go like this, put his hands right there on his head, and now the change we're going to make on the character is we're going to actually hit Control Alt so that those strokes just get deleted. Okay, and one thing that's pitifully obvious is that there needs to be a pause here after his hand touches the guy's head. Arguably, there should actually be a delay between when the hand touches and the eyes go open as well. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm just going to hit undo a few times. And so now, again, we're in the same situation where animating by doing drawing versus animating by moving objects and rigging and all that sort of an approach. You're going to be fighting yourself sometimes if you're not really careful. I need to go back into object mode. And what is clear is that once his hands hit the guy's head, the movement from here to here should not start yet. Okay? So therefore, again, this is housekeeping. We got to go out of grease pencil back to dope sheet. Alright? And so now this movement starts happening right away. And that's really wrong. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this key. Okay. And same thing here. So on this guy, that was frame 38. So let's grab this guy. And on frame 38, again, we'll just duplicate this key. Let's see how it plays when I just play it back. Yeah, I have to say, all in all, it's a lot faster to just make drawings and... Wow. Okay. Let's go back to this guy, and unfortunately, more housekeeping. I have to switch back to grease pencil. Now, what we see is the hand touches. So then on the twos, we're going to go into draw mode. And now we're going to grab this, get the look of surprise, and at this point, boom, we want to do the same thing again, basically. And I'm going to go ahead and do a little sculpting just for fun, just because I can. Let's shrink that guy down a little bit, and then shift spacebar, make sure I'm in grab mode. Okay. Doesn't have to be perfect because this is just reference for the inking we're going to do later, but boom. Okay, and then right here, let's actually get the time of this. Boom, yeah. Right here, back into draw mode. Tweet, 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 tweet. Okay, so at that frame, object mode, back to this guy, draw mode. Okay, and I have to go boom so I can see my keys, and this is going to be the first key change for this guy. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to be having to, you know, work back and forth. Okay, and now... Okay. I inadvertently erased his eyes. Well, it's not the biggest tragedy ever, is it? So I want to have that same reaction shot right there. So on this frame, we're going to add this. This is a really rough approximation of Zen's hand. Okay, so now this is interesting. Stop everything, hold the presses, people. Hold the presses. What the heck happened to this guy's eye? Unfortunately, and I really do mean unfortunately, I'm starting to maybe think that I may have uncovered a bug. Well, it wouldn't be a total shock since Blender 2.8 is beta software, depending on who you ask. Maybe alpha software. Okay, let's just keep forging ahead and see if maybe there's something I missed. Feature really works. I'm playing Grease Pencil while watching your stream. Yeah, I'm not sure what feature you're referring to. I don't know what feature you're referring to. It's all very confusing. Alright. And now the eyes in the previous frame disappeared. That's pretty weird. I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm not like missing something here, but that seems kind of weird to me. Okay, we'll paste them back in. And when their heads kiss like that, we want to, well, we want to be in draw mode for one thing. Add a key, get rid of that. Okay. So now since we're on that frame, and that's where we wanted it for both guys, I'm going to hit tab, grab this guy, back to draw mode. So if you get the sense that maybe the whole process of, you know, managing edit mode, draw mode, you know, this sort of stuff, can become cumbersome. My sense is that it definitely can. Now, I've done some other scenes in Blender 2.8 and they went more smoothly, so I would say that I would attribute that almost completely to the fact that I just did everything in a single grease pencil layer. Okay, and then these guys are going to fall. So anyway, let's see what it looks like. Okay, so now his eyes have disappeared again. Look at that. Okay, that is really concerning because it does suggest that the Blender 2.8 grease pencil has some data management issues, and it's losing track of its data. So yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. But again, it's not the biggest shock in the world. Anyway, what I think needs to happen now, this is almost one of these things where you really want to go into the curve editor or something, but I guess we want to see the dope sheet summary, because and I really want to be in dope sheet, not grease pencil, because the problem is right here, I'm going to ignore the fact that these guys are not showing their surprise. But once he grabs them, all this action needs to be moved downstream, because there's no time for the audience to register what's happened, you know, to appreciate that these guys are going, whoa, what's going on here? Grab. That's better. It's actually still too. Okay. Don't look at this guy. Boom. Okay. So again, this is just so many examples tonight. It's just emblematic of what can really challenge you when you're trying to balance keyframe animation with frame by frame drawing animation. So what am I talking about? Here's what I'm talking about. Because Blender forces you to change context, okay? So I'm in the dope sheet, and what the dope sheet keyframes are showing me is how these objects that hold these grease pencil characters have been moved, rotated, or scaled. So the problem is that this grease pencil object that represents this character is inexorably tied to the drawings or the grease pencil keyframes that are attached to it. But the problem is I have to constantly switch contexts. And that's a big deal, because what that means is when I moved these keyframes, the corresponding grease pencil keyframes don't get moved. So you're constantly, so you change something in terms of the overall translation animation, and then you realize you have to go back now and move all the keyframes that were related to the grease pencil, because to be specific, once he gets in that reaction, and so the movement of his head, that action is happening at the right time, but all of these keyframes related to his expression now all have to be moved downstream. Okay? Well, you know, that's just what you have to do. So I'm going to hit the box select. Okay, and I can't do it on the dope sheet summary. I need to get Ninja 2. And here's where this is a problem, is that if I go to the dope sheet and select the object, okay, so now I have to make a mental note that the action really begins again at frame 55. Okay, so now I have to switch back to the grease pencil, grab all these keys and move them down to frame 55. So what we see here is that at any time, and I mean any time, well, yeah, okay, Zarko, you're correct. That's right. But you do, you know, and I can get away with that because I have 3 screens. Okay. But yeah, you could do that. Create another dope sheet, so you've got one that's grease pencil and one that's you know, one that's dope sheet and one that is dope sheet grease pencil. Okay. So, and to do that and to preserve screen real estate, obviously I would have to do that on a separate physical screen as well. So, but I mean, for me, the salient point is you really have to be thinking about, do I want to animate this by making a new drawing or moving, strokes around, or do I want to translate the object? What I'm learning, I think, is what I learned in OpenTunes a long time ago, at least in computer years, which means a couple months, is that you really you just want to keep it simple and think in terms of your drawings and get that animation figured out, and then use translations more for either secondary animation or just getting characters positioned and that sort of thing. So the upshot of that is I probably should not have animated this move right here. I shouldn't have animated it with translation. I should have just grabbed the strokes and moved the strokes. So, well, I mean, you live and learn. So now that action begins on frame 55. So let's just see if we can go back here and, grab Mr. Spider-Man looking guy. Okay, so it starts there. Yes, and that is Ninja 1. So I should be able to grab these strokes, drag that down to frame 55, 56-ish. Yeah, that feels pretty good. And so now we have the same problem again with Zen's shoulders, because now they're out of sync. So, I mean, that's my point, is every single change means you got to go back and go into the individual grease pencil object, to the grease pencil dope sheet, and make these changes. So, and I obviously I know that that's just whining on my part. I'm not saying it's a bad thing that you have to do that. I'm just saying I want to, as I'm exploring how I'm going to work with Blender 2.8, I want to be really cognizant of these things. Because if you bump into these things, that what it means is that more than half the time I'm spending on this animation is not spent drawing, is not spent animating. It's actually spent clicking and going back and forth and back. Not saying it's a bad thing, because if you're doing CGI, and you have more of a rigging mindset where you're creating characters and doing a lot of setting them up to do the animation later, it's not a bad way to work. But for hand-drawn animation, it is a little bit clunky. It's just clunky. So anyway, all right. So if that's the case, what needs to happen here is, okay, yeah, because we moved his hand into the other guy's layer. Yeah, and to put it another way, all the stuff that I'm sort of observing here and having to work with never even is not an issue at all when you're just doing really simple, structurally simple hand-drawn animation. You just draw a new drawing, or whatever. You erase something or drag it around. So, frankly, I'm a little confused right now, because I need to go to Zen, and I'm in the grease pencil dope sheet. So he responds, his eyes pop open, but this, okay, so there's a number of things here that I'm having to fix. Okay, because you can see this guy is going into squint mode way too early. So grease pencil dope sheet for N1, that key right there needs to happen there. Okay, so my bad, folks. I kind of thought I moved these keys, but maybe I didn't. So how about that? Boom. Okay. Now the other guy's crosses happen quicker. I'm going to say that's probably more appropriate. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this downstream to here. So again, I'm not trying to be a whiner. I'm just trying to, maybe I shouldn't be live streaming this because I'm really working out in real time. What are the things you're going to bump into? Because if you bump into this stuff on the very first scene you do that involves multiple grease pencil objects, then okay, that means you're going to be bumping into it constantly if you don't plan ahead. Okay, so right now, that looks pretty good, I would say. Let's see if it plays back nicely. Boom. You know, from a... not bad. Frankly, I think it looks pretty good, and all the things that I've been talking about in terms of dealing with structure and dope sheets and all that crap, I'm going to mitigate all of it very easily. So there's no work lost here, because all I need to do is just create a brand new grease pencil object and do all my ink and paint on one grease pencil object, and then later, you know, just delete all these other ones later. So now the only thing missing, and since we're doing it this way, let's go back to the dope sheet and grab this guy. Okay, and what I want to do is probably take this and duplicate it, and then over the course of about there. I really am not sure, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's just go, and what the heck, well, I don't want to do that. Let me, so the question is, how fast do you want this guy to fall? So, and you know, obviously this is all happening on ones. You know, you're getting full 24 frame per second interpolation here, so obviously that's way too creamy and smooth for anime, but let's see what happens here. Boom! Okay, not bad, not bad. So he basically landed down here on frame 96, so let's take this guy and let's put him kind of sort of close to that. Okay, so I'm going to take this position and actually add another key about 4, 5, 6 frames ahead. So there's a little bit of a delay. Okay, so that's not bad. That's not bad. That feels pretty good. Boom. Okay. So again, these keys all definitely need to be on 2s. All right, since the action with these dudes looks pretty good, let's address a couple other things here real quick. The framing was certainly tighter in the original version, and I do think that's what I want. So I'm in object mode. So let's reveal the camera, and let's get the basic framing here pretty close from the get-go. So you can see the parallax, and that's because in the Y space, Zen is actually farther back. So okay, and so I think I was thinking about rotating it down to get some parallax this way, that sort of a thing, but that's not something I should do. Okay, so now, golly, I gotta think about this. So if you guys don't like watching me sit and think, you know, I apologize. The question I have is this gonna look screwy when it's cut into the show? Here's what I'm going to do. Let's do this. Let's go to our output settings. Let's go ahead and let's run this as a pencil test. Anime render, obviously, and this is 104, 01, 04, and then we'll just overwrite it later. So I'm going to save that as a AVI JPEG, and I just want to render the screen, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, what was it? Viewport render animation. Okay, so that's rendering. Not remarkably fast, actually. Kind of surprised by that. It's not like the old OpenGL renders, which were like real-time almost. But if we do this, then we can go ahead and get this cut into the show, so, and make sure that it's going to look okay. So with that, while that's rendering, I'm opening up another instance of Blender 2.8 so that I can pull up the video edit. Okay, and while that continues to render, I'm going to bring this down here. See, now here's what I'm talking about, why this could be problematic. That camera move has to fit nicely right here. You know, if I'm concerned about the camera move. So okay, I think it'll probably work. So I'm going to just get to my starting point. How's the render going? 70. We're getting close. I can't remember how long this is, but it seems to me it's somewhere in the 80s or 90s. Come on now, we're almost there. We're almost there, Hugo. Don't tempt me. You guys probably don't remember that voice from Dr. Shrinker. In your render settings, set EV from 64 to 16 passes or so. Yeah, and you know what? And agreed. I haven't even looked at that. I haven't even looked at like the oversampling or any of that stuff. But yes, thank you for the tip. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here, and you can't see this screen, but I'm going to browse to where this... Oh, my nose is itching for some reason. Golly, that is one freaking long shot. Jeez, oh Pete, what am I doing here? Okay, so let's run this. Yeah, I think the camera move looks great. Cool. So that means we can go ahead and deal with the car. Where are we up to? The TV show is... God, I can't even believe this. It's up to 5 minutes and 30 seconds. That is insane. Really crazy how... Yeah, it's humming along. Okay, so... File. I guess I'll save the edit. I'll just duplicate this and I'll overwrite it later, and that'll be that. So... Okay, so that means we can work with Akari. So let's grab Akari, and let's go into draw mode. Because, well, she needs to be drawn. Okay, so let's go back to frame 0. And obviously, she is not happy. Right? No, she is not happy. Oh, by the way, thanks everybody for hanging out tonight. Of course, we're down to 2 people, so apparently I'm not that interesting, which is not a big surprise. Because I am not that interesting. Okay, and probably her pigtail should be kind of like in there, like so. I'm not really digging that too much. Okay, that's not too bad. So now the question becomes, what do we actually want her to be doing? And we've bumped into a problem yet again. Grease pencil. Sure enough, I will guarantee you Akari has another keyframe. Frame 1. Curses! Delete that keyframe. Okay. Okay, so what I'm thinking is, I don't know. Let's just do it this way. Let's just grab this stuff and let's just do it on 4s and see what happens. Okay. That one probably should go the way of the buffalo. Yeah, that's okay. Okay. I hate this animatic looking, you know, everything's super smooth. It definitely does not look like an anime. Okay. I'm going to come back to this motion. But right here, I'm going to go ahead and give her a new key. So let's go into draw mode. And let's just get rid of all that. Okay. Okay, and it erased her from that key. Okay, so this seems to be a thing I'm noticing. I create a new key and I erase some stuff, but it's actually getting erased from the previous key. Now that's not a big deal because I can copy that pose from this keyframe, which I'll go ahead and do right now, but that is not correct behavior, I'm really sure. As long as we're here, we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so now we should be able to see it. Okay. Hit the A key twice, go downstream, draw mode, and back to work. So now, yeah, that's cool. Okay, so she's kind of like wondering. I'm making faces right now. I'm making faces while I doodle. Okay, so I'm just ballparking. And I do have the proclivity, I think that's the right word, to draw her eyes too high. So just trying to be a little careful here. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the thing I would say right here Yeah, let's do it there. What the heck? Let's put this in edit mode. Sounds like my phone just went off, so I better see who wants my attention. Yeah, that's not bad. Especially at this hour. It's probably Baxter. It is Baxter. Baxter has a cryptocurrency called Uranium X, okay? And actually, this is it right here, as a matter of fact. Boom. Okay, why the heck are you actually acting so stupid? Okay, so Uranium X, radioactive crypto. It's basically a cryptocurrency that is based on the Argon 2D algorithm, which lets you mine the cryptocurrency, and it is, as you see here, ASIC and GPU resistant. So in other words, it's essentially limited to people that are going to do mining on their computer as opposed to a dedicated cryptocurrency mining hardware. So this week I wrote an application that makes it so that you can join a mining pool and decide what pool you want to join and put in your address, and it basically launches the cryptocurrency mining software on your machine. So that was a bit of a project this week. So anyway, okay, so Kari is, I'm gonna just draw keys where they feel right. So at this point I'm feeling one right here, and so let's just make a mark. Hello. Okay, so now we've got a key, so that means I can go like this. And what I want to do is I want to have her turn her head. Yes, nice. Oh, there's her little ball thing. There's her little pigtails. Obviously, well, actually, let's just do this. Let's just take that. Hello? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Again, same problem we had before. These two characters being all tied up the way they are, to have him in a separate grease pencil object is like beyond stupid. Okay, but that's okay. Let's jump to Ninja number 1, and let's jump into draw mode. And on this frame, which happens to be the correct one, it looks like, actually I don't want to do that. I want to go control. No, I want to go, dang, I gotta switch to edit mode. Okay, that's what I wanted to do. Go up like this, rotate it like that. Okay, and if I really want to pull this off, I need to put in a couple other keys. And what the heck? Okay, so now again, housekeeping. Here's the problem. I'm looking at Akari's channels instead of Ninja One's channels. Okay, problem number 2. It appears to me, so this is Ninja 1. I can prove it by turning him off and on. And okay, I was going to say, man, a minute ago, it's like I'm creating these keys and freaking nothing's happening, man. Freaking nothing's happening, man. It's driving me crazy. Okay, that's not exactly the slickest I've ever seen. So maybe Okay, that was wrong. Okay, I want the anchoring of his elbow to stay up high. But this is like worst case scenario here, what I have to. Okay, so now what I want to do is go like this, and now let's just go in and start adjusting the drawing. Alright, so let's go. We gotta go back into draw mode. Folks, I tell ya, it's like you can't really grab the strokes when you're in draw mode. You have to jump to edit mode. And I have to be careful here because I don't want it to look like this guy's like feeling her up while he's falling. So what I'm going to do is, well, this just goes to show it, doesn't it? It's just so much easier to just redraw it 10 times faster. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and put one more key in there just because I'm feeling frisky. Like that. And look what happened. Okay, so now I'm actually getting a little bit pissed off. Look at that. 3 keyframes that just disappeared. So now this is the sort of thing that makes me a little angry, frankly, because I'm gonna rant here. I'm gonna rant. Like I said, I spent some time doing software development this week to come up with use cases that would allow you to find these sorts of obvious problems is not that tough. In this situation where you've got the strokes simply disappearing. Wow, I mean, really? Not good. Not good. Not a good situation, people. Not a good situation. Can't say that this is a good situation. No, sir. No, sir. But that's okay. We'll just deal with it. Okay, so now we're gonna deal with it the old-fashioned way, which is to just make new drawings. And this is when things tend to go quickly and frankly tend to go better. Get away from all this jumping into edit mode and object mode and this mode and that mode and just draw. Unencumbered artistry. We love it. We love it. Yes, we do. Okay, this was the one that okay. Now it definitely looks like he's feeling her up. So that could be problematic. I mean, this is a family-friendly cartoon, I think. Okay, that ought to work. Okay, so now save early, save often, right, folks? Absolutely. That's the right idea. Okay, so now let's get back to fun. Let's get back to Akari. And we gotta make sure she's selected here. See, yeah, the jumping around in the dope sheet to just get your bearings is not my idea of a super good time. But that's okay. Draw mode. So I'm just gonna put an indication of where her eyes are and not really worry so much about the exact placement. So now what I do want to do is give myself a keyframe. Okay, so now there's a keyframe. Let's see if anything disappeared from the previous frame. No. Okay, so that's good. So now what I'm going to do is take this out, and we're going to say, okay, point of her chin, So Let's just do this. Yeah. Just get the positioning right. Better zoom out a bit so I don't bomb the scale. Okay. That's going to lag behind a little bit. So the lesson tonight for me, by far, is treat the grease pencil like kind of the way it was in 2.79, where you only had one grease pencil object until there's a really good reason not to. Until you really need that ability to put a grease pencil, some drawings or animation or whatever in a separate object. When the scene calls for it, fine, great, no problem, do it. But don't use it as a first choice organizational tool, which is what I did here because I gave each character their own grease pencil object. It would be my definite opinion that is probably something you don't want to do unless you've gotten to a place in the project or in the scene where you need to go ahead and have a separate grease pencil object for one reason or another. I actually can't think of a great reason offhand. Just the reason would be if you got two objects that are totally separate and you don't want to create, like right now I create a keyframe for her, right? If all the characters were on the same grease pencil object, then when I create a keyframe for her, that keyframe is then created for all these guys too, which means their drawings are effectively duplicated. So that creates its own sets of problems in terms of going back and changing things on the other characters. So it is a balance. I mean, if you were doing this in OpenToons, you'd probably put each character on their own separate level, right? Well, it's generally good practice. I kind of feel like I botched that. Oh man, that's not what I meant to do. Oh, that's the lessons you learn. But every strategy has its drawbacks. Every strategy has its pros and cons. I think it was Einstein that said something about making things as simple as possible, but no simpler. That's kind of what I'm trying to say in an admittedly long-winded and goofy way. Okay, I think we're pretty close to there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and let's see. Maybe I can do this with sculpting. Let's do sculpt mode. Twist. It's worth a try. Ah, that went badly wrong, didn't it? Okay, the answer is no. So therefore, what that means is you've really got to be in edit mode to do this sort of thing. Okay, and I meant to hit control. Seems like some strokes disappeared again. Yeah. Okay. Let's see if the timing. Okay, so I think this would be a good place to... Okay, I keep dragging the cursor around. I don't mean to. Okay. Draw mode. What the heck's going on down here? What is that? Flickering. Something to do with the underlying OpenGL compositing, I suppose. Okay. Let's see what we have. I think I'm going to stop here. Yeah. Hour and a half is probably enough. Save. Boom. Yeah, I mean, not bad. Let's go about to 120. Boom. Yeah, I like it. And then when we ink this, we'll put all that animation that's way too smooth, we'll fix that. So, okay, I think that's it for the live stream tonight. And as usual, there will be more later.